What is your real-life paranormal story? As a kid, had multiple recurring dreams of standing in my grandparents' backyard and looking at the back of their house. Nothing was visually off, but something just felt horribly wrong. Had that same dream for years, but never mentioned it to anyone because it was so bland. In 2018, my dad walked out to that spot in the yard and killed himself. Haven't had the dream since. I was babysitting two younger cousins at their home, which was about 100 years old and situated next to a graveyard. There wasn't necessarily a bad feeling in the house whenever we were there, but it was a bit creepy at night looking out at the headstones. I was helping the girls brush their teeth and whatnot before bed, and I headed back downstairs after they were in their beds and I had said goodnight. I sat down and almost immediately I heard a commotion of doors, not slamming, but shutting hard, and the girls, I believe they were around 4 and 6, talking loudly. When I got upstairs, they were at the end of the hallway, around a corner, and they were pushing their hands against the door to the attic, as if trying to keep someone/something from coming through. "We gotta shut it. Help us shut it," they half shouted and half whispered. I'm already on edge because of the house, and the stories my aunt and uncle had shared with us regarding paranormal activity, and so when I put my hand up against the old, heavy attic door, I absolutely shat when I felt something pushing back from the other side. I paused for a moment in shock, then quickly and forcefully slammed it shut. Thank goodness. The girls thanked me, as if this were like a normal bedtime thing for them, and went back to their rooms to go to sleep. I noped the heck out back downstairs. My aunt and uncle returned later that evening and I mentioned it to my uncle as he drove me home. He just kinda chuckled and said something to the effect of, "Yeah, sounds about right." When I was about 11, at summer camp, we went on an overnight camping trip in the woods. In the middle of the night, nature called, and I went outside. There, I saw an older teen. All of our counselors were either high school seniors or young college students, in a varsity jacket standing outside taking a smoke. I asked him where was a good place to go and he smiled at me. I turned away for a second and when I looked back, he was gone. The next morning I asked my counsel who the guy was and when I described him, flat top, varsity jacket, he turned white. He said that in the 50s, a bunch of local kids had gone into the woods and were murdered. I laughed it off, thinking he was just trying to scare me. Several years later, when the internet was a thing, I ended up remembering the incident one day and searching it out. Turns out my counselor was 100% correct, and the hairs on my body stood on end. Ever since then, I've been convinced there are such things as ghosts. I was sleeping in my own room and woke up in the middle of the night for no reason until I realized someone was standing next to my bed. It was dark, so I only saw a figure, but once my eyes got used to the darkness, I saw it was a human figure wearing a white dress of some sort, and its head was bending down towards me a little, as if it was watching me sleep. I couldn't see its face. I thought it was my little sister, so I asked, "What are you doing in my room?" No answer. I realized it couldn't be my sister as it looked to be a lot taller than my sister, so I carefully raised my leg to kind of get the feeling if it was a real person. My foot didn't hit anything and then the figure slowly disappeared. After that I panicked and hit the lights on and couldn't sleep at all that night. It was so weird and I have no idea what that was. This happened over 8 years ago and I still think about it time to time. My friend and I were walking alone at dusk after a tour in a historic cemetery that had a grisly, bloody past and was notorious for poltergeist activity. While we were walking towards the back mausoleum for a quick thrill, giggling in conversation, we both stopped dead as we watch a freakishly tall black shadow person step out from behind a grave about 30 feet away. This thing was blacker than the color black itself. An empty void. We stood in silent awe as it creepily strolled forward until it finally ducked behind another large grave. We literally ran out of the graveyard in a confused state of bewilderment and barely spoke of the matter for 10 years. My friend was very skeptic and tried to explain away what we saw. She only told me recently that she genuinely believes it was something paranormal and thinks about it still to this day, as do I.